Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming with Arc Raiders. Today we're talking about augments. The all-important slot that decides how much inventory space you have, how much loadout weight you're going to have, what shields are even compatible, unique stuff like what kind of augment slots you get, how many safe pockets, and maybe most importantly, what kind of unique passive you get from the augment itself. How do they work? What are all the important things to know about each of them? And how do they stack up against one another? Basically, what do I recommend? With that said, I want to clarify what makes a good augment in my opinion so you understand where I'm coming from. A good augment requires shield compatibility of medium in my opinion. Yes, of course you can get away with light shields, but if you don't have to, I don't want to. A medium shield literally provides more damage reduction combined with the increased amount of shield to work with to maintain that damage reduction after an initial trade. Because it's true, there's not a massive difference between the damage reduction of your medium and your light shield, but the medium shield lasts longer in regards to that damage reduction it's providing. But there's also the topic of heavy shields, which to be fair gives you an extra 10% damage reduction at the cost of the movement speed. That is really bad on all maps except for one. The new map, Stella Montis, is almost entirely inside, and almost every scenario you're going to be in is going to be close range battles, where that movement speed debuff is actually less impactful. This is even more so the case if you actually got 5 out of 5 use of the way, meaning the shield isn't going to slow you down as much. So with those two things in mind, I do think heavy shields have a place in the game now, though I'm still thinking it's up for debate whether they could receive a buff or some sort of change. With that context out of the way, let's begin with the list. Right, here's the tier list then, going from S to C. We're going to start at the bottom at C, and there's no like D or F or whatever because all of them are viable. You can take on anyone with them, but obviously there's better options and big advantages you can get from this or that augment. So let's begin at C. With firstly, the obvious one, the free augment loadout. The most limited of all of them really, with no special passive. You got a weight limit of 35, which is minuscule. The tiny amount of backpack slots, 14. You get no safe pockets, you get no special quick use slots, and you can only use light shields. So this would be like your DRF, but obviously you're given a random kit. So you're given a gun, you're given ammo, you're given utility that might be expensive. Running a free loadout, piling your bags and leaving is incredibly valuable. And then as we all know, you can bring yourself to Lance and trade it for one of the Mark 1 augments, where it normally costs you about 2,000 to buy. So it doesn't matter how bad or good the random loadout you get from the free loadout is, it's undeniably valuable, and there's so much potential with just running a free loadout. With that then, we have the Mark 1. So that's your Tactical Mark 1, the Looting Mark 1, and the Combat Mark 1, which we need to organize. Right from the get-go, you can craft all of these, just costing some plastic parts and rubber parts for each craft, super cheap. Now the obvious downside of these is that they don't come with a special passive, but each one of them compared to the free loadout at least has that one safe pocket. None of them get that special utility slot. For the Combat Mark 1, you've got a 45 max loadout weight, 50 for the looting, and then finally 40 for the Tactical Mark 1. That's 5 above the free loadout, so pretty minuscule. Of the 3 of them then, I would rate the Combat the best option because while it can actually have a medium shield, just like the Tactical, it has 5 more weight to work with, and actually slightly more slots to work with, 1 more slot overall. If you're doing an absolute maximum budget run, the bare minimum I would run would be the looting rig with the light shield, with the pure purpose of piling stuff into my inventory and leaving. So overall, I would rate them in this order, with free being the best option of the 4 of them, because obviously it requires no investment at all, and there's a lot of potential there. And now things can get a bit more interesting. Let's begin with B tier then, starting with Looting Mark 3 Cautious. This, as you can see, is expensive to craft as your first epic augment that we're talking about, requiring 3 processors and 2 advanced electrical components, though that is craftable for refining in a reasonable way. Rare and epic augments then start to get these impactful passives. The Looting Mark 3 in the Cautious variant causes a weak adrenaline shot with a fixed cooldown when your shield breaks, giving you a little bit of infinite stamina, which is certainly a useful thing. It also has a whopping 70 max loadout weight, but it has some clear problems for an epic augment, for one that's going to cost you these parts to craft. You can only use light shields, and you have 2 safe pockets where others of this quality have 3 or other big benefits. It doesn't have any special slots that you can work with, but it does give you this built-in binocular setup. To be fair to binoculars, it can be useful to zoom in and have a look at stuff, but really that is way too niche for the cost that we're looking at. Ultimately, there are other options that are going to do the same thing, but for cheaper. So if you can run this, so you've got some lying around for a loot run, don't get me wrong, it's phenomenal. I did some loot runs today using Lush Blooms, using this augment, and of course the extra weight load and potential, the 2 safe slots. It's fantastic. But I could have done the same thing with a much cheaper option, with the same risk of a light shield. For similar reasons then, we have the Combat Mark III Flanking. Now I know this one will probably cause some issues for some people, because here's its unique passive. Stowed or unequipped pistols and hand cannons are 33% faster to equip. So, a very common, very potent combo of say a Venator and then your Anvil as your heavy option. This lets you swing them or swap between them super effectively. If you're caught out or surprised, it's definitely a nice thing to have. But there's just some very clear downsides to this concept. The thing that holds it back the most for me is the fact that we're talking about a light shield only augment. So if you are surprised by someone, yeah, cool, that faster equip time for the pistols is going to be relevant, but you're using a light shield, and this is a scenario where we're saying someone's attacking you first. I'd much rather have a medium or heavy even in that scenario. And if I have to trade a slightly slower pull my gun out time, it's a worthy trade in my opinion. So that ultimately really holds this augment back from me personally. At least it does get 2 safe pocket slots and decent inventory space, held back by its 60 weight limit a bit, but I feel like this would be a lot more relevant if it could also have medium shields. Then it'd be something that would be worth considering if you're doing a pistol based run. Finally for B tier then, we have the Combat Mark II. So as we reach rare, we actually start to find that middle point between them. We do have a unique passive, and we start to get interesting effects, like that 1 utility slot for a grenade. With 18 slots for an augment that's rare, I think that's solid. And a 55 max loadout weight. Obviously a major aspect of this one is its ability to equip light, medium and heavy, so if you are going to consider heavy, it is one to think about. The passive is a bit weird though. Restore 1 health every 5 seconds. You've got 100 health. When damage is taken though, the effect is paused for a full 30 seconds. And then you stop and think about the actual healing, right? 1 health every 5 seconds? You're waiting half a minute for 6 health or a full minute for 12. How does this really work in gameplay? Think about it. You've taken damage from an arc, maybe you've been shot by a player. If it's a player, you are in a fight. You're going to need to heal if there's a moment where you can get that time to do so in the middle of the fight before the next trade. Really, the only scenario where that matters is when you've had a fight with something, it's not been perfect, and now you're willing to risk a period where you're not full health, letting this tick you over. The most relevant part of this passive is probably going to be, I've had a fight and I'm out of heals, thank God I've got this passive that'll top me off eventually. It's just a little bit too weak and too long, and then that 30-second cooldown. But to give some credit to it, heavy shield potential, and the crafting required for it is 2 electrical components and 3 magnets, which is very, very cheap. But at the same time, your other rare augments are going to cost the exact same and provide a bit more potential. So let's go up to A tier where we have the Looting Mark II. Why is it that I've got Looting Mark II over Looting Mark III, or even, your Combat Mark III? The Looting Mark II requires 2 electrical components and 3 magnets to craft. Something like one of the others that we just looked at requires 2 advanced electrical components and 3 processors. No matter what way you look at it, that is significantly more investment to actually craft than any of the rare augments. So the jump between them has to be respectable. And I do think weighing how costly something is to craft and actually run back to back to back is very important to the context of this video. Looking at it then, you have a worthless passive. Throws attached ticks after 1 second, which is basically what you do automatically when you press the button anyway. It's not relevant. What you do get then is a max loadout weight of 60. You're forced to light shields, which sucks. But you get a hefty 22 backpack slots with 3 trinket slots on top, so that works as 25 on a loot run. You get 2 safe pockets for this, and then your 4 utility. I think this is basically the ultimate budget loot running augment. I would rather run this every single time over running any of the basic green augments, the uncommons. And my purpose when running this would be very specific. I'm there to do one thing only, which is pile loot and leave. I'm going to try to avoid combat because I've got a light shield only. The 2 safe pockets are really nice too because you could bring in, say, a Raider hatch key in one of them, and then you've got space for like a really good valuable that you find in the run. One of my favorite runs to do with a looting rig like this is a super quick one. Spawning at Spaceport, running past the extract by Departure Lounge, popping it. I've now got 2 minutes and 45 seconds to run into Departure Lounge, maybe go red locker room, maybe go upstairs, loot as many valuables and junk in general, raw value, and leave within 3 minutes of spawning in. So for this clear purpose, I think it's fantastic. And I think it's really hard to justify the jump in expense to something that undeniably does have more slots, does have more weight load, and obviously a better passive, but is a lot more expensive. In the scenario where I have infinite resources, well then why wouldn't I use the bigger one? But we don't have that, and a lot of players would rather spend these parts on upgrading your weapons, renegades, venators, that kind of thing. And if I was running those things, I wouldn't want a light shield on anyway. Alright, next up, let's talk about another epic augment. This one is the Tactical Mark III Defensive. This one right here. So as an epic augment, you're going to need those advanced electrical components and 3 processors. Is it worth it? This gives you the built-in shield recharger, which allegedly can be used while running, which doesn't seem to work that much. But essentially what it is a durability of a shield recharger that gives you a ton of value, because instead of using your own resources, you get this integrated one that you're able to pop, especially out of combat, or if you have the time in the middle of combat, saving on your resources and always giving you that option if you run out of your own. It does come with some cost though. You've got 1 save pocket compared to other epic augments that might have 3. You've got a max loadout weight of 60 compared to some that have 70 or 80, but you do have that potential of a medium and importantly, a heavy shield. This very well could be your best heavy shield option. You've got solid slots in general though, 20 backpack, no special slots, but you do have 5 utility. This is one that I'm always happy to run, especially if I'm thinking about combat. If you look at something like a Surge Shield Recharger, you're going to need electrical components and advanced arc power cells to craft. You're just given one of these essentially. Up there in A tier with them then, I would put the Combat Mark III Aggressive. So it's much like the Combat Mark II with its passive healing, but with twice the value. As you can see, it restores 2 health every 5 seconds, but has that same 30-second cooldown. Again, feels unnecessary. If we're going to advance to more expensive costs like this, I feel like it should say restores 2 health every 5 seconds, and then the cooldown if you take damage is 15, not 30, like half it. So the clear issues of this exist. But to give it its credit, 65 max loadout weight is solid for this. And while it's true you have less backpack slots, 18 compared to say 20 of others, you get those 2 special grenade slots, which then leaves you with more to work with for utility. You only have 1 save pocket, which is undeniably bad for an epic augment, but then you have that potential of medium and heavy. The reality of this one, again, is that, look, 2 health every 5 seconds is not a lot. 30 seconds for 12 health, though, isn't terrible. In the scenario you've taken damage, you've got away from a fight, and you're letting it top you off. And certainly in the scenario where you've run out of healing, and this is just now what you've got. But it still feels overly punishing, and it'd be something I'd like to see rebalanced, just to make them more relevant. But would I really run the aggressive over the defensive, which gives me the free shield recharger? Probably not. Last for A tier then, we've got the Tactical Mark III with the healing variant. This is a bit of a weird one, almost a bait. The unique passive of this one is that when you're being revived from being downed, you get this healing cloud, 20 health over 10 seconds with a 30-second cooldown. So basically you get up and you get 20 health. That's nice because when you've been downed, you're certainly not full health, and it'll help you top you off quicker from standstill. But it's less of a healing cloud and more of a self-heal. You'd think that when you get up, having friends stand on you, maybe the one that revived you, would get some benefit from that, but they just don't. And then there's other relevant downsides. You got the 16 backpack slots compared to say 18 or 20 of others, but you do have a major perk here, which is the 3 safe pocket slots. That's the trade you're really making here. On top of that, you do get some healing item slots, which leaves your quick use slots a bit more available for, say, arc utility you pick up in the run. But its weight limit is pretty low for an epic augment, 55. It can use medium shields though, which is definitely a saving grace. So it's not like I would be upset to run it because it has these perks and benefits. 3 safe slots is incredible, but in regards to the other augment that has 3 safe slots, it's so much better in terms of its relevant passive, so I'd rather run that, which is why it's in A tier compared to S. So that brings us to S tier, where we have 2 pretty obvious choices. Let's start with the most obvious one, the Tactical Mark II. Yes, a rare augment is above a lot of these epic augments. And I think a lot of people know about this one, so we'll be quick on it. Very cheap because it's rare, just electrical components and magnets compared to your epic augments being a lot more expensive to run. And it has a clear downside. 45 max loadout weight is brutal. You get 1 safe pocket, you do get a utility slot for like zip lines and barricades, but then 17 backpack slots and 5 utility. And there's one other aspect of the Tactical Mark II that really affects things. It's your skill tree. If you are investing in broad shoulders, you're going to be able to work more with that tighter weight limit that it has. And if you're able to reach as well into loaded arms, you're going to deal with that even better. So the downsides of that rare augment are greatly mitigated through the skill tree. But ultimately, You have medium shield for PvP, and you have the passive. When the shield breaks, you get a smoke grenade. Just get your shield back on, and it'll pop again before you know it. In any corridor, this is going to completely wall off what's happening. And I think we all know at this point the experience of shooting a player and then them bursting in smoke very commonly, especially in trios when you're seeing so much of this. It doesn't matter what context we're talking about. When someone surprises you and gets the unfair ambush on you, getting smacked and then a smoke spawning on you very often saves your life, giving you a chance to break line of sight, get into cover and heal up, and now actually have an engagement. Instead of in the same scenario with most other augments, getting slapped and downed and hoping your team saves you. But yeah, still very relevant in solos where you will be suddenly attacked, and this gives you that chance to deal with it, which is why it has to be S tier. The cost of it is minuscule, and the raw value of that passive is like the best in the game overall for all the augments. So if I'm ever doing a run where I'm thinking I'm going to get into PvP, but I'm not looking to like super invest in an epic augment, the Tactical Mark II is the obvious choice. And not only is it cheap to craft, but you can buy one every single day for 6,000. It's absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I feel like that's pretty obvious, so let's bring it now to the Looting Mark III Survivor variant. This is just insane on paper, I mean, it's obvious. You can use medium shield, so that's ticked. Its max loadout weight is comical, 80. You get 20 backpack slots, 5 utility, and then 1 for like a zipline or barricade, which is fantastic. Then you have 3 save pockets. But compared to the other one that provides something like that, you get a passive that's a lot more relevant. While downed and stationary, health regenerates up to 75% of max down health. What does that mean? Well, it means when you've been downed and you're not moving around, you actually recover health instead of losing it. You go to 75%. This means you can stay in a down state for as long as you damn well like. So let's imagine you're in a group, you suddenly go down, the fight passes you by, you can crawl into a better position and buy lots of time, wait as long as you need to for your team to come get you up. Or you could be in solos. Things have just gone wrong. You're down because you fell off a roof or maybe an arc killed you. Well, you can still crawl your somewhat embarrassed ass to the extract. And while you're in a down state, you can still call the extract, you can still drag yourself into it, and you can still use the button to extract, which is a fantastic detail of Arc Raiders. So simply by having this augment, a failed run could be a success where you don't lose everything you have. And between the two augments that are going to give you that potential of 3 save pockets, this has a passive that's going to have some relevance. And then it's got even more loadout weight potential. And man, am I relieved it can use medium shields. The problem with it is obviously that it's an epic augment, so it's more expensive. But this is probably the one that I'll run the most if I'm just crafting epic augments over and over. Whereas if I'm wanting to budget, then yeah, the Tactical Mark II is the option. So yeah, taking a look at the list, I think it's fairly balanced. Like I said, nothing is bad, C tier can work, but I would never choose to use anything under a rare augment at this point. 99% of the time, I'm going to be using a Tactical Mark II for a rare augment, or maybe I'm doing a looting run that I want to be budget, so I'll do the Looting Mark II. And the cheap crafting cost of that is a huge reason why it's in that A tier just barely, so keep that in mind. And obviously we've discussed the downsides of your B tier options, even if they are pretty solid for this or that reason. I hope this gives you some understanding and confidence then on how all of this works, and what is worth crafting and running on average. Let me know your thoughts, and what would you like to see in terms of updates or rebalance for augments, any changes that would be nice. For me, I think, the combat ones with the weird health restore passive with the 30-second cooldown, I want to see some relevant changes for that. But yeah, let me know. Until next time then, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.